For more on all of this, I want to bring in Bill Brown now, a former Navy SEAL, who joins us on the phone, who fought so hard for Pete Hegseth to make it to this point as well. Bill, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, Vince, it's great to be with you. Thank you so much for giving the warfighters a voice.
Always. Tell me your reaction to now Secretary Hegseth getting the role. He's kind of squeaked in the end because it took Vice President Vance going in to cast a tie-breaking vote in the Senate on Friday.
Hey, I think the vice president said it right when he said win's a win, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
And it's a great day for our military. It's a great day for our nation. Look, we live in a very complex threat environment, and we need our military to get on gear. And one of the things you mentioned earlier is you talked about the threat on the 2,000 miles of our southern border, which is currently influenced and has a lot of control over organized criminal organizations or cartels. And I think the president took a big step in addressing this right away, because when we really think about it, they're responsible for killing more Americans than any other terrorist organization in history.
Yes.
Fentanyl has killed, it's responsible for 70% of the overdose, 107,000 overdose deaths every year. You look at what they have a huge influence on the extensive human trafficking networks into our nation. They're heavily influenced by China, who has a big influence on the money laundering and the chemical precursors used for fentanyl.
Yep.
So the president took a big step in addressing this threat. It's a big threat to our nation. It's a big threat to Americans in protecting us. We need to button up that border right away. I think they should have the Seabees help with building that border.
Yes.
I think we need to take big steps as far as getting the cartels, their family members, and their members out of our international banking system. Because if it's not profitable, then it's going to hurt them where it matters, and it's going to greatly reduce their influence. I also think we should use our special forces. I'm a former SEAL. I think we should absolutely use our special forces to take out their organizational infrastructure and destroying their super labs.
Yeah, that'd be a big deal. That'd send a really clear message. And President Trump has signaled that he is open to that very thing. By the way, speaking of the conflict that is on our border, just in the last hour, they say that Fox's Bill Melugin reports that suspected cartel gunmen began firing upon Border Patrol agents in Fronton, Texas. The Border Patrol agents returned fire. Apparently, no one was hit in the exchange of gunfire, but we have a very real battle going on. We have on our southern border, as you just so well laid out, Bill Brown. That does seem to me, I see these Democrats who are like, what are the military doing there? Why is the military involved? I keep thinking, well, isn't the military's primary mission to protect American citizens, to keep us alive from adversaries like this?
100%. That's really what the military is about. It's about protecting us. And it doesn't take a genius in the Pentagon to realize there's been a national security threat at our southern border for quite some time. It took Trump's courage and leadership to address that threat when others would not. Look, I believe as a SEAL, we live by, in any op, it was always surprise, speed, and violence of action. And when you let your adversaries know there's zero BS going on, people comply. We call it pain compliance. Look, we can't have people at the border, these drug organizations, threatening, intimidating, and controlling 2,000 miles worth of our border. That has to stop, and that has to stop today. Look, they want to mess around with the U.S. military. They're going to find out a hard lesson, and they need to find that out as soon as possible.
Yeah, we saw some reports that the Marines headed to the border this last week are locked and loaded, and if the cartels dare exchange fire, they're going to return it. By the way, I love that phrase, surprise, speed, and violence of action. That almost makes me want to figure out a way to join up. It's so cool. Hey, as far as the border is concerned, I have a Democrat senator from Michigan, Alyssa Slotkin, who was on ABC this weekend, and she's upset that the military is supporting the border mission. Here she is.
Your reaction to those military flights and the influx of troops going to the border and the idea that they are armed.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we've had multiple administrations who have sent uniformed troops, active duty troops to the southern border in support roles, right? According to our Constitution, you can go in supporting roles, logistics, driving, setting up facilities, setting up, border locations, whatever. It's very different when you cross the line into law enforcement. Our military are not trained as law enforcement officers. They'll be the first one to tell you that. That's not why they got into service. And it's also in violation of our Constitution. So I think it's very important that we keep that line.
I don't even really know what she's talking about, because my impression is not that the military is there for law enforcement, Bill Brown. It's there to kill enemies if necessary and support the Border Patrol in its mission.
Well, my number one rebuttal to her would be, hey, guess what? The DEA states that the number one cause of deaths for Americans ages 18 to 45 is death via overdose via fentanyl.
Right.
So if you're not interested in American first, American citizens, their safety, look, we're looking at the Homeland Security recently released a fact sheet for fiscal year 2024, and they stated they encountered over 3 million illegal immigrants at the southwest border. Look, that's a greater number than most major cities in our nation. Look, that has to stop. It's obviously we need to do something. It's a national security threat. You look at the very portable, dangerous weapon systems out there and the mass horror they can cause. You can see what happened on 9/11 when we fell asleep. You can see what happened with the intelligence agencies on October 7th in Israel when they fell asleep.
Yep.
Look, we have to lock up our border. We have to put America first, our citizens first. And I like the way that the SEAL teams operate. We don't operate. We try to take the decision makers off the chessboard. When you start taking the decision makers off the chessboard, similar to how the FBI did when they targeted organized Italian enterprises in America back in the 80s, that's the right way. When you start taking out their ability to make money, their ability to move money around, and then you start taking decision makers off the chessboard, that's the right way that things are done. Not having border fights with foot soldiers and uneducated gangsters. That's not the right way. We lock and hold the border, and then we take out key decision makers and their ability to finance and move funds around. That's the right way.
And kill hundreds of thousands of Americans each year. Okay, so let me move on to one other topic with you. Secretary Hegseth today previewing that a number of executive orders are coming out today, more from President Trump, addressing some of the issues inside of the Pentagon. Here's what he said.
Today, there are more executive orders coming that we fully support on removing DEI inside the Pentagon, reinstating troops who were pushed out because of COVID mandates, Iron Dome for America. This is happening quickly. And as the Secretary of Defense, it's an honor to salute smartly, as I did as a junior officer and now as the Secretary of Defense.
Bill Brown, there's a lot to unpack here, but among the things he's talking about, reinstating troops who were pushed out because of COVID. This is a big step. This is a promise that President Trump made on the campaign trail, now fulfilling it. Their plan is to welcome back as many troops as they can possibly welcome back with full back pay. Anybody who was booted for failing to take the COVID jab when it was mandated before. What do you think of that?
I think all the steps in these executive orders are all based on one thing, on protecting our nation. And so, number one, there's a huge issue with recruitment.
Yeah.
And so what are all these efforts? Even you talk about the Iron Dome, that's basically about protecting us. These other measures, executive orders, it's about, guess what? These men and women who loved our nation, served our country, we spent millions of dollars training them. Why not get them back in the fight with us? And here's something else. Here's the truth. The truth is warfare today is much more advanced than it used to be. And they're talking about, the Democrats that I've heard about lowering the standards. That's the wrong way forward. The right way forward is actually use incentives that they use in the corporate sector to recruit the type of talent and personnel that we need in the military. Now, one of the things I've recently proposed, and the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, agreed, is that I propose that we follow Alexander the Great's example. Now, Alexander the Great, one of the incentives he did for the Macedonians was they guess what? They didn't have to pay taxes. And I proposed a similar type of proposal. If you're serving in our nation's military or you have served for 10 years, you shouldn't have to pay federal or state taxes. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to greatly increase your recruiting pool.
Yes.
And those are the type, and with the cyber technology and different technical fields we need, that's what we need to offer, these type of incentives and these type of training curriculums.
Yes.
To basically get people in the pipeline for these fields that we need. Because I guarantee that pooling field for recruitment is greatly going to enhance when you have incentives where, guess what, I only served my nation for 10 years, because a lot of the training the military has, I was a SEAL. They spent millions of dollars in years training me, right? So you train somebody for a certain type of sophisticated field. It's going to take a couple years. Now you want to keep them around for a couple more years. So guess what? And when I was in Bosnia working with the Brits, they had a similar type of proposal where the Brits, if they did 10 years, they got a partial retirement. I did, and then if they did 20, they got a full.
Yeah.
Well, the military spent millions of dollars training me, and I did 3 deployments back to back to back. I went to war for my country. Guess what? If they would have offered me, if I would have done 2 more years, and I would have got a half a pension, I did 8. I would have done another combat deployment if I could have got a half a pension for the rest of my life.
Right.
That type of out of the box thinking is what the type of incentives that we need to keep these good men and women
Yes.
who love our country at the front lines for us, in these critical fields where we need them. And I am so glad that we finally have a warfighter like Pete Hegseth at command, who knows what we need to do to get the job done, knows what we need to address the threats, knows the type of incentives that we need to recruit the type of talented personnel that we need in the military. Because guess what? The days where you can get somebody who hasn't had a degree or only has a degree in the military, those days are over. It's a sophisticated world that we live in with advanced technology, and those are the type of talented people that we need to recruit and build. And those are the type of incentives we need to bring to the table.
I love it. It's great out of the box thinking, and it could really increase the talent pool dramatically. Hey, Bill Brown, former Navy SEAL, sir. Love having you on the show. Thank you for your effort to get Pete Hegseth into this position, and I think you and I both agree it's going to pay off. Thank you very much, sir.